This is my use of technology piece for media studies, my evaluation, how I used technology to create my film, how I basically my how I edited the final film. I shot most of the film on a Nikon D3100 and just used the built-in mic and used on location ambient lighting to light the scene most of all. Now how you edit is go over to the media browser, add some clips, and I go through and let's see. So basically I don't want the audio coming through from the video.
Yeah, maybe like turn the page.
Because it's full of background noise, there's me talking, I don't need any of that because I'm going to replace it with music later on. So I can go here, click unlink, and then delete those out, or I can just delete one or a few. Right, so now I've got several clips, no audio, and so I go about editing. So what I'm doing is I'm watching it happen, and as the right moment comes up, so I'll probably delete that one. As the right moment comes up here, where he puts the newspaper down, I'll find the moment where he puts the newspaper down in this clip. So it's around there. I'll turn snapping on, it will snap to this line and snap each clip to each other. So now it should look like when he puts the paper down. See, it's not quite there yet. So when he puts it down, putting it down. So yeah, I shaved too much off that one. So it's basically just a balancing act, trying to get each moment exactly right. You can drag this across to make the timeline bigger and stretch the timeline about. It's probably about there. So you get the idea. So you're matching up the shots to each other and you're making it seem as seamless as possible. And as what I've just shown you there, it's not even very seamlessly edited, just 2 clips, and there are around 50 clips for this entire thing. It doesn't look like it because most of these clips are nested, which means that if you click on them, there's a sequence in here that you can apply effects onto this nested sequence instead of having to apply effects onto each individual slice or each individual clip. And most of the work done in this film was done with the kind of colour and post-production aspect, for which I used free plugins to make it look like the footage is from different eras. So in this 1980 section, I've got if I go to if I go on the nested sequence, and then a nest by simply just highlighting that, right clicking nest, and that's not nested. So and I can go effects, video, and I can go all these universe plugins. They are third-party plugins I've got a free trial for. I've got styles. For this one I used retrograde because it made it look like it was from the 1940s. There you go. So it's basically automatically cropped it to the different ratio. It's reduced the frame rate, and it's added film grain and black and white. And basically that's it. That's how I change the footage. For the 1980s section, it's much the same thing. I used the VHS plugin with the plugin suite that I got and added it over the top on the nested sequence, but then on individual frames, like on this frame, you can see that there's a title card that flies in over the top. It's just an image, and also some glitching that happens using a different plugin that's only applied onto that one section, whereas the whole kind of, if you see the original here, this whole kind of like soft focus, high contrast effect is taking effect on the whole nested sequence. Now for audio, mostly all the sound effects I used are from Freesound, which is sounds people upload. People allow them to use them in the films and any other creative projects. And another music I used is under it's under free creative license because I've only used short clips of it, so I'm fine from that. So yeah, I've got the audio. The audio doesn't stay the same level throughout the entire thing. I used keyframing. Now keyframing it's an essential part of video editing, and it's basically it tells the piece of editing software to change certain things over time. So for this song that I've got during this 1980s section, there's a keyframe here and a keyframe here, and if I play it from there to there, it will increase the volume because it kind of follows. If you think of this as the overall volume, this line here, it will follow the line. And I've done the same for this kind of like warping transition here. This is also keyframe. So basically, if I go on to here and affect it in the same way, if I go effects, it's this one. So you change your keyframing by you click. I'll just mute that because we don't need the audio. You click on any of these stopwatches, and it adds a keyframe, and you can see add remove here. So if I go from there to there and add another keyframe and change the scale, so this changes kind of how big the effect is. If I go from there to there, it will kind of transition between the two. So for this section, I used it to kind of indicate that they travel back in time, or travel forward in time, depending on what you wanted to do. And for colour editing in this sequence, in that kind of like the modern time, I went along to, if I go back to here, as you can see, it's cropped in into 21:9, which is a much more modern aspect ratio. And as you can see, I've also affected the colour, because the colour isn't the same as the source. It's much more washed out. So I basically went to colour, and I took down the saturation and a couple of other things, I can't remember, but it basically makes it all much more washed out and a much more modern. Um, it's a much more modern kind of color correction. It's